Welcome to my deck analysis series where I go through meta decks and try to give you an idea on whether or not you should spend gems or money to get them. As a Duel Links whale myself, I have access to all of the meta decks in Duel Links, as well as tons upon tons of expensive staple back row, which allows me to test each of these meta decks one by one and give you my thoughts about them. Rose Dragon is another one of those decks that can play a lot of staple back row and has a broken consistency skill that enables super consistent one-card combos. It has a playstyle of summoning level 7 synchro monsters every turn and setting a whole bunch of back row. The reason why this strategy is so good is that the level 7 synchro toolbox is filled with really powerful monsters for both going first and second. The deck can summon and revive Black Rose Dragon multiple times and easily push for lethal with enough monsters on board, threatening a devastating board wipe every turn for decks that are unprepared. As a super consistent one-card combo deck, Rose Dragons can afford playing a bit more than 20 cards in their deck, but I prefer sticking to the minimum of 20 cards, because Rose Dragon is the best starter that you want in your hand as frequently as possible. All Rose Dragon decks play 3 copies of Rose Dragon and White Rose Dragon for the one-card combos, and since the skill needs you to play at least 10 plant tuners or Rose Dragon monsters, most players use Blue Rose Dragon and or Rose Girl for the remaining spots. A single copy of World Carrot Weight Champion is also commonly used for White Rose Dragon to send to the graveyard. It helps the deck a lot by dealing enough lethal damage alongside revived Black Rose Dragon. Most players use a single copy of Ruddy Rose Witch, and funnily enough they don't use it for its effect, but rather as a discard fodder for World Carrot Weight Champion that can be searched by Rose Dragon. Most players that use Ruddy Rose Witch don't even play Witch of the Black Rose at all. Basil Rose Shoot is both a powerful extender and follow-up for the deck, and should definitely be played at 3 copies for its versatility. The rest of the deck is filled with staple back row, or hand traps like DD Crow to disrupt your opponent. Let's go over the deck stats. Firstly, like most top-tier decks, Rose Dragons are super consistent due to their broken skill, Spell of Roses, allowing the deck to have 6 one-card enablers and plenty of room for all kinds of back row, not to mention the skill can be used twice within a single duel, which pretty much guarantees a follow-up play for turn 3. Only decks like Resonators and Onomat in the past can match up to this level of consistency. Even without the skill, a single White Rose Dragon is all the deck needs to make another level 7 synchro. These consistent one-card combos also make the deck incredibly easy to learn, similar to Mechlords, because you'll only be using the same combos over and over again without much iteration. Rose Dragon decks don't do much other than summoning level 7 synchros using the same 2 monsters every turn and setting a bunch of back row. Even new players should be able to pick up the deck pretty quickly. The deck is also extremely offensive thanks to having access to Black Rose Dragon in pretty much every turn, and any opponent that fails to prevent that would have their entire board wiped and open for direct attacks. A singular Rose Dragon in hand can wipe your opponent's board and summon enough monsters for lethal at the same time, and this amount of sheer power from a single card is basically unheard of. Even in cases where your opponents are playing battle hand traps like Sphere or Ribot, the deck can simply summon an Odd Eyes Meteor Burst to guarantee lethal. The deck also has non-targeting card removal with Black Rose Dragon, and targeting non-destruction monster removal with Psyframer Lord Zeta, which bypasses most protection effects. The deck is also quite good defensively because of their abundant back row and powerful level 7 synchro options. Zeta can disrupt your opponent by temporarily banishing itself and an attack position special summon monster, which forces your opponent to special summon monsters in defense position until they can get rid of Zeta. And Yazi is an untargetable 2600 attack monster that is very hard for a lot of decks to get rid of, especially when combined with 3 set staple back rows. One of the major reasons why Rose Dragons didn't see play before their skill got buffed was that it didn't allow you to summon generic synchro monsters during the turn you activate the skill, which gave the deck a significantly weaker turn 1 board, but the skill buff solves this problem by removing the summoning restrictions after you activate the skill. Even as a top-tier deck, the deck still has some noticeable weaknesses. Firstly, like other meta decks that use one-card combos, the deck has an obvious choke point, but it is worth noting that unlike other decks like Mechlord and Photons, Basal Rose Shoot allows Rose Dragons to continue their combos by summoning another Rose Dragon monster from their hand or graveyard. The deck is also very graveyard reliant because of cards like White Rose Dragon and Basal Rose Shoot that can special summon monsters from the graveyard, flipping their starting monsters face down with common staples like Book of Moon or Floodgate Trap Hole is a decent way to prevent their synchro summons, and it is a better solution than to destroy their monsters or bounce them back to the hand with cards like Compulsory Evacuation Device, because your opponent can simply activate Basal Rose Shoot and continue their combos as normal. Another effective disruption is by banishing their Oxrose Dragon with traps like Bottomless Trap Hole or Karma Cut, which stops your opponent from reviving it over and over again. Monster effect negates are also super useful to prevent White Rose Dragon from reviving Roxrose Dragon in the first place, especially counter traps like Divine Wrath or Ultimate Providence that also destroys the negated monster. By far the best counter to the entire deck is Stygian Dirge, which completely shuts their deck down until they draw MST from their deck. Graveyard Disruption or floodgates like DD Crow or Necroovely are also very effective against the deck. Don't forget that the main deck Rose Dragon monsters are all dark, which means a single Shadow Imprisoning Mirror can shut them down as well. Rose Dragons are extremely good. They have super consistent one-card combos, have easy access to a variety of level 7 synchros depending on the situation, and can run tons of back row. Despite all this, I don't recommend new players to get this deck, because these kinds of top-tier decks that rely on broken skills are very likely to be nerfed soon, and it's not really worth spending real money to get 3 structure decks because of this, in my opinion. That said, for older players that have tons of staple back row and don't mind spending a few dollars, Rose Dragons will surely win you tons of games in the following month or two before they get nerfed. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.